If Pickens doesn't get the bag, will he pack his bags? Drama in Dallas. We'll get into it. Plus, what's the plan that's going to bring Kansas City back to greatness? We'll ask an expert. And speaking of greatness, nobody does it better than LeBron. Yet another legacy moment for him. We'll break it all down. Yahoo Sports Daily starts right now. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Yahoo Sports Daily for the next 2 hours. Racked, stacked, packed, ready for everything. Happy draft day. It's my favorite day of the sports calendar. I love the draft so much. By the way, we've got tons of coverage coming forward on Yahoo Sports tonight, tomorrow night, every single pick covered. We've got NBA playoff action. But because it's my favorite day of the sports calendar, Caroline, let's start with the Yahoo Sports Daily final official. This is it. It's in the books. Mock draft. All right. So this is where we get to show off our expertise and figure out who the top picks are going to be. You'll notice number one is missing because number one is Fernando. I don't know if you want to. You can roll your R's if you like, Caroline. You want
Fernando.
God, how does she do that better than that? So I'm going to be standing in a bar tonight surrounded by Raiders fans, and I'm going to see if I can get an entire room of people to do that. That's my goal, to get a bunch of drunk Raiders fans to roll their R's. So now that we know that that's the first pick, Let's get to where the magic starts. The second pick in the draft, to the New York Jets, who have 2 picks in the first round. Caroline, who are the Jets taking second overall?
I went back and forth with this. Not the position or what the Jets should do there, but really the player. But ultimately, I landed on Arvell Reese from Ohio State. A lot of people have talked about Arvell Reese not only being the best defensive player in this draft, but the best player in this draft. And so if you're the Jets just need everything. The Jets want to set up a happy and positive ecosystem for when they're ideally, I'm sure their plan for roster construction is to find their future quarterback in next year's draft. And if you have an elite defensive player, that alleviates so much pressure off of your young quarterback. If the Jets find that next year, I won't hold my breath. But I do think that the Jets eventually go Arvell Reese. If it's not Arvell Reese, I believe it could be David Bailey, but I'm going to go Arvell Reese here to number 2 to the Jets.
Yeah, look, we agree on this, and we agree on the process that got us there. This was a really difficult decision for me. I'm actually kind of glad that I'm a Raiders fan and not a Jets fan, weirdly, because the Raiders' plan is very simple. The Jets are going to constantly have the should they have taken conversation, but for me, it's a couple of things that stand out. Number one, versatility. I think Bailey might have a better beginning of his career, but Arvell Reese has a chance to do a lot defensively. He can do more things. Also, he's 20. Right, so you just start talking about the ability for him to develop. You got a lot of time on task with him, so now you'll get the opportunity to see who he can grow into. He can drop back in coverage if need be. I think Bailey's probably the freakier athlete, but I think Arvell is the player with more upside. And I can't believe I'm saying all of the cliches in the NFL draft coverage that I hate, but that's real. So I'll take Arvell.
But you have to say it in a Mel Kiper voice. Well, I think he has more upside.
Yes, you know what? Can I have pie at the end of the night like Mel does every night? Mel Kiper has a piece of pie. I just want to live like Mel Kiper for
he deserves
a year.
it.
It's just, he's so sweet. All right, how about the Cardinals? And the Cardinals on the clock. Remember, there is still a football team in Arizona. We just forget about them. All right, so picking third overall, who do you have the Cardinals taking?
My husband, who was born and raised in Arizona, also forgets about the Arizona Cardinals. I think the Cardinals go with whatever defensive player the Jets don't take. If the Jets ultimately do take David Bailey, I think the Cardinals go Arvell Reese. But since I have Arvell Reese going off the board at number 2 to the Jets, then I have the Arizona Cardinals taking David Bailey. The Cardinals need defensive help, and they need it badly. And I know that the Arizona Cardinals have swung and missed on some pass rushers and pass drafts with, high draft picks. But that doesn't mean that you just stop trying. That means that you continue to go back into the well, and all of the draft experts that say that David Bailey is as close to a sure thing as possible. He was absolutely disruptive at Texas Tech, was a massive reason why Texas Tech found themselves in the college football playoff this past season. That I think David Bailey has the potential to be an absolutely elite defensive player and game wrecker at the NFL level. That's what the Arizona Cardinals need.
So the Cardinals are like that kid sitting there trying to figure out he's got 2 girls he likes and he wants to ask both of them to prom and he can't figure it out. And then all of a sudden, one of them takes a date with somebody else. And you're like, thank you. You just made things easy. That's like, if you're the Cardinals, you sit around, you're like, you know what? Arvell Reese is off. Fine. We'll take David Bailey. We'll be really happy about this. This is also, by the way, I think a great pick. You used the word game wrecker, and every time I go back and watch anything on David Bailey, that's the first thing that comes to mind. Like, he is a matchup problem, and he's the sort of person that I think the Cardinals defense gets better the day he steps on the field. So with the 3rd overall pick in the 2026 NFL draft, I think the Cardinals get a sneaky home run here. So now we've had a quarterback and 2 of the best defensive players taken off the board. And we get to the Titans, a team you and I both know, important to just let the world know that we both lived in Nashville for a long time. We both covered this team at different periods. We know this team well. So, Caroline, let's see if we agree on this. The Tennessee Titans, with the 4th selection in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Tennessee Titans select?
The Tennessee Titans select Jeremiah Love, running back out of Notre Dame. I've heard a lot of discussion about the comps between Sonny Styles and Fred Warner. Obviously, that makes sense. Robert Saleh, the head coach in Tennessee, is very familiar with Fred Warner, and you could kind of see the gears turning. You could see how that makes sense. Defensive player to a defensive head coach, a guy who was able to use that chess piece very effectively in San Francisco. But I think there's 2 different philosophies here. Do you draft a great player, albeit in Sonny Styles, that fits kind of the style of the head coach? Or is your number 1 priority giving your young, former number 1 overall pick, hopefully franchise quarterback, weapons? I think it's the latter. I think the Tennessee Titans' number 1 priority should be put the right pieces around Cam Ward and see what you have in him. Because if at the end of the day, the Titans decide that Cam Ward is not their quarterback of the future, I think you can sleep better at night knowing that you gave him every possible piece and every possible weapon for you to come to that decision. And look, it gets late early in the NFL. It's already year 2 for Cam Ward. At some point in year 3, you have to make the decision of, is Cam Ward our future quarterback? Is Cam Ward the guy to get us to the promised land? And I think an elite running back, which is exactly what Jeremiah Love is, a pass-catching running back, a willing blocker, a quick runner, a bulldozing runner. I think that is a great check-down option and a great go-to guy for a young quarterback in Cam Ward.
I want Cam Ward to be an elite quarterback. Anytime a guy's selected 1st overall, I want him to succeed. But the most important thing here is that you have to surround him. And that's where success comes, right? Like I've said to the Raiders repeatedly, and I said this to the Titans a year ago, when you draft a quarterback 1st overall, everybody in the building, all the way down to the janitor, should speak one language, and that is the language of that quarterback. All you care about for the next 3 years when you draft a quarterback 1st overall is how do you make sure you figure out if you've got that guy. Credit to the Bears, who turned around and looked at Caleb Williams and said, nope, we need a different coach. We need a better offensive line. We need better weapons. We need to figure out how good Caleb can be. And what do you know? Caleb turned out to be really good. Credit to the Patriots, who won a lot of games, in part by bringing in a great offensive coordinator and putting better weapons around. So, yes, we agree. This is a love story for the ages. Taylor Swift can sing about it. Also, they should play Jeremiah as a bullfrog at the beginning. I'm just saying, lots of music options. Jeremiah Love, 4th overall pick. I don't give a damn if it's high for a running back or not. How about that, saucy? What about 5? Let's see. So far, we agree on everything, which is a testament to just, how smart we both are. But it's also not as interesting. Obviously. Let's see if we get, let's see if we get some disagreement here at 5. Who do you have the Giants taking?
This was the hardest one for me because the previous 3 and really 4 picks, obviously Fernando Mendoza, those felt like they kind of fell into place. The Giants, I feel like, could go any which way. The Giants need offensive line help. We saw Jim Harbaugh take offensive line help over pass-catching help just a couple of years ago when the Chargers selected Joe Alt over Malik Neighbors. That's a very Harbaugh mentality thing. So if the Giants do go offensive line, I wouldn't be surprised. I don't think the Giants take a pass catcher here. I think the Giants might just take the best player available, and that very well could be Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State. It fits a need in the fact that you just traded away Dexter Lawrence, and no, it's not the same position, but it still adds more pressure, more size, more versatility on that Giants defensive front. And I know that the Giants have invested so many quality high round draft picks on that defensive front over the last several years, but that's also been a strength of this team over the last several years. I know you want to get Jackson Dart some weapons. I know that Malik Neighbors' recovery period is still a question mark. So if the Giants go wide receiver here, if they go Jordan Tyson or Carnell Tate, wouldn't be wildly surprised. But I think that Sonny Styles is just a weapon, a versatile weapon that can add even more to that defense. So I'll go Giants Sonny Styles here.
I almost went the same way, but here's the thing. You mentioned, difficult. For me, when I looked at this entire thing, it was between two players, and I said, I'm overcomplicating this. This is the home for Caleb Downs. And I just keep going back to Harbaugh defensive identity, and I understand we just sort of associate the Ravens with who they were defensively. But I look at that defensive front for the Giants, and I say, man, they've got so much talent there. Now you put your weapon back there that can handle absolutely anything and everything. We had an expert on last week that reminded us that we're talking about a player that has the same number of snaps at safety and the same number of snaps at corner. And you're talking about somebody that can literally play everywhere. And that level of versatility makes me think of guys like Nicky Manwari and the difference that they made in a defense. I think Caleb Downs is maybe the best player in this draft. And then all of a sudden I just look around and say, this is simple for the Giants. I think Styles is a sexy pick. There is no doubt about it because he has so much potential. But Caleb Downs, safety or not, this is a home run for the Giants. Giants fans should do cartwheels in the street. So we have our first disagreement. Let's see how far these two respective players fall for us. What do you have for the Browns at 6?
No. I do not have for the Browns at 6 because in my mock draft, we have a trade. The Cowboys at number 12 have traded up with the Cleveland Browns to select Caleb Downs, safety out of Ohio State. Thank you very much. I do think the Cowboys do end up trading up to take one of these elite defensive players. With whom they trade up, I don't know. To take who, I don't know. But to me, I'm with you. You said Caleb Downs may be the best player in this draft. I am with you. So I think the Cowboys would be salivating at the opportunity to do that. And we do know that the Browns have been picking up the phone, have been kind of looking around who could be a trade partner to trade back. We heard that from Mary Kay Cabot earlier on our show this week. So I think that fits. It fits the needs. It fits the wants of both of these two clubs. The Cowboys just need defensive help. The Cowboys need defensive help desperately. They were just horrific to watch defensively this past season. So what do? They go all in and invest into not just, again, one of the best defensive players in this draft, but one of the best players in this draft. There was a clip circulating. It was Nick Saban, I believe, maybe on the Pat McAfee show yesterday. And Nick Saban was gloating about Caleb Downs. Remember, Caleb Downs was initially committed to Nick Saban in Alabama before Nick Saban retired. Then Caleb Downs transferred to Ohio State. And he was talking about how Caleb Downs was one of the best players he has ever coached. He has it up here. He has it in here. He has the motor. He has such a high football IQ. And he is also a weapon. He's such a versatile defensive player. So for a Cowboys team that just needs defensive help, Caleb Downs can deliver that right away.
Look, if the Cowboys, if Caleb Downs is sitting there at 6, the Browns have an obligation to listen. There's 100% all day, every day. In fact, if Reese, Bailey, Styles, Downs, if any of the 4 of them are sitting there at 6, and by the math, one of them should be, this becomes an absolute home run opportunity for the Browns. The only thing that I kept looking at is that at the same time, I kept thinking about what Mary Kay Cabot did tell us the other day, that the Browns believe that they're on the precipice of being competitive. They just need better quarterback play. Well, knowing they can't get to that quarterback, knowing that trading down makes it tougher for them to get anything for that quarterback, I have them sticking. I know that this is not as sexy. And your pick, by the way, if what you're calling happens, I'll be jumping up and down at Peter Dillon's in New York City, jumping up and down, celebrating with everybody because I think it's a great pick. I have the Browns staying where they are for Spencer Phantom. The best offensive lineman in this draft, they're able to just stay where they are and take somebody that helps their quarterbacks. And this is one of those moments where, again, it ain't sexy, but every time I talk to my secret committee of fat guys that played in the league, they keep telling me that this kid's worth it. He is a top 10 pick through and through. He's a plug-and-play guy. So if I'm the Browns and I can get somebody that's plug-and-play that makes my offensive line better, and because I believe based on the way they've treated Myles Garrett, they believe that they are right on the edge of being a playoff team. So what takes them over the edge? Future equity, not so much. Better offensive line, absolutely. So I have the Browns doing the unsexy thing, but what I think is the smart thing. Your answer more fun, though. All right, 7 at Washington. Let's get one more in. That means that as we sit right now, where are you with the Commanders and the 7th overall pick?
Get my man Jaden Daniels some offensive help. At 7, the Commanders draft Carnell Tate. Yet again, another Ohio State player. Look, the Commanders have Terry McLaurin coming off of an injury, and then their next best option at wide receiver is Treylon Burks, a guy who is a bust in the NFL. The Commanders need offensive weapons. They need Jaden to give that to Jaden Daniels. They need to dig themselves out of the hole that was the 2025 season. And Carnell Tate is the full package. If it's Carnell Tate or Jordan Tyson, I think there's a lot of debate of who is the better receiver, who's the number one receiver in this draft. I will go Carnell Tate with some of the injury concerns from Jordan Tyson.
I love it, and I love the pick by you. It is spectacular. I also agree he would be my pick there at wide receiver. But as I sit right now with the board, Sonny Styles is still available. And if I'm Washington, I don't know how I pass on a freak athlete that I didn't think would be here. Like, that's the crazy thing. The narrative on this draft is, this is what you hear so many people say, this draft sucks. And I would just challenge that. If you're looking for, oh my God, starters, maybe you don't get plug and play immediate, oh my God, guys in the 20s. But in the top 10, you do. If you look at our lists here that we have respectively for these top 7 picks, there's a lot of guys that I think become immediate difference makers. So there's a lot to be had here. If I'm Washington, I can't walk away from the freak athleticism, just the absolute beast that Sonny Styles is on the field. I have to take him. All right. Reminder tonight, every single pick will be covered for you live on the Yahoo Sports Network. Everywhere you watch us, you can watch the crew come in. We got the Football 301 guys. We got me sitting in a bar. We got Andrew Siciliano coming in to host. It's going to be an epic night, and we'll be back all night tomorrow night too. So the draft is covered better than ever at Yahoo Sports. We'll get back to the draft and NFL talk in just a second, but last night was a huge night in the NBA. Booker coming out, calling out the refs. We'll figure out if he's on something or if he's on target coming up next.
If somebody stops you on the street and they say, Dion, what's Joe Brady like? What do you tell them?
Just a dope, cool dude from Florida that loves ball, and he'll shoot you straight. He'll tell you what you need to, but he'll also laugh and tell a joke. And as a player, coach relationship, it's beautiful to have somebody that can turn it on and turn it off at any time.
What is going to happen inevitably in 6 months when you are tempted, when you have that itch, when the thoughts in the back of your mind say, you still got it. No one leaves on a winning streak.
That's what's going to happen.
Yes,
I know.
It's inevitable.
I've been around this sport long enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Is I would like to retire on a 4-fight win streak, then roll the dice, come back, get a loss, and then guess what happens? Then I'm going to get in this chase of wanting to get that loss back. And we see how that ends up for a lot of fighters.
What put you over the top to I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Signetti really focusing on the development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
We have the fake handoff. Nate Davis rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and then easy walking with a little bit of swaggy style in for a touchdown.
Yeah, the swaggy walk is as fast as his run. So that's what's...
Looked like maybe we were going to get a fake pick. Instead, wow, he is absolutely rolling, and now we have dueling quarterback runs all over the place.
I don't know if you're aware of this, but even the broadcast was confused by your tech. What was the explanation that you got?
I still haven't got one. It's definitely something that has to be looked into. I heard Caruso tell him to call the tech, and, he ended up doing it. So that's one ref. In my 11 years, I haven't called a ref out by name, but James was terrible tonight, through and through. It's bad for the sport, bad for the integrity of the sport. people are going to start viewing this as a WWE, if they're not held responsible.
That was Devin Booker in a very controlled moment last night, saying things that were absolutely shocking to many of us. Haven't called out a ref by name, but James was terrible tonight. He did last night. They lost. They're now down 2-0 to the Thunder. So we're going to do a little triple threat. All right, this is where we take a take as some sort of topic in the NBA, and we decide to shoot, pass, or dribble. If we shoot it, we're taking that. We absolutely agree with the take. If we pass it, we want nothing to do with it. We're getting rid of it. If we dribble, we're cowards, and we're not willing to take a stand one way or the other. So let's start shoot, pass, or dribble. Devin Booker is making excuses. What say you, Caroline?
I'll shoot on that. I will shoot on that because I do think, one, the fact that this is coming from Devin Booker, I think matters. Because Devin Booker doesn't have a long history of calling out the refs. Like he said, I have never called a ref out by name. He's been in the league for 11 years. Like he is not somebody that's consistently going to whine and complain and make headlines for what he says in a post-game press conference. Like this isn't Draymond. So I think that matters. And I think that when it comes from someone who doesn't habitually do this, it bears a little bit more weight. Now, look, it was a bad call on Devin Booker. I thought it was a bad call. I thought it was clear that he was kind of losing his balance a little bit, that it wasn't intentional. I don't think that was a foul that should have been called. But also at the same time, the Oklahoma City Thunder went to the foul line 25 times. The Suns went 22. It's not like there was this massive foul disparity. Now, there was a bad call. I will acknowledge that. But the optics aren't great for Devin Booker because you just went out there and you got booty whooped. Like you just got beat up on for the better part of 4 quarters. You lost fair and square. I do not think that the Suns are going home with a loss because of the officiating. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder, hot take, breaking news, are the better basketball team. So even though I will say, and I will state for the record, I do think that was a bad call. I don't think that it was any sort of conspiracy theory, nefarious, going on behind the scenes. The NBA is turning into the WWE type of call or type of night for the referees. And I think now it's just a bad look for Devin Booker that, look, you got your butts whooped and now you're getting up in front of the microphone and whining about it. I love Devin Booker, the player, but I don't think it's a good look for him last night from what he said.
It's so funny to me that we see it so similarly, but have a different result at the end of the equation. Because I'll pass on him making excuses. Everything you just said is true. And I think 2 things can be true here. They got their asses kicked by a better team. They don't belong in this series. There's never going to be a world where they challenge Oklahoma City for more than a miracle game where Oklahoma City can't deal with maybe J-Dub's injury or, it just comes out flat. Those are the things that I would say would be a reason why Phoenix could win. So they don't really belong in this series. And Devin Booker certainly picked an inopportune time to talk about the officials. It was still a glaring bad call, right? So I don't know where the line is because he didn't come out and MF the ref. He didn't come out with this great emotion. He came out very matter of fact and let us know he thought that James had a terrible night. Now, so I don't think he's making excuses because 2 things can be true. It can be true that they got their asses kicked and also true that it wasn't the best night. I do think there's a little boy who cried wolf when you use that as the moment of people are going to start thinking it's the WWE. When you clearly don't belong on the court and you're getting your ass whooped, that's probably not the time that people are going to sit there and say, this is all scripted. So maybe he could pick a better time to do that. But I do think it's I'll pass on the making excuses. I think it's a little bit of 2 things can be true. How about this one? 98-83. Final score last night. Detroit takes down Orlando. They even the series at 1 game apiece. So with that, 83 points for Orlando. Shoot, pass, or dribble. Last night, we saw the real Detroit Pistons finally.
I will shoot on that because you just mentioned it, 98-83. 83 points are the lowest point total that the Orlando Magic has put up all season long, and that's considering the Orlando Magic offense has struggled really all season long. So that is very Pistons to do what they did defensively. I think it was very Pistons, the fact that they, or at least a bounce back from the Pistons that we, trusted for such a massive portion of the regular season whenever they got production up and down the lineup. Like in game one, it was Cade Cunningham and nobody else showed up. Everyone was like, cool, Cade's back. All right, we're good. We'll kick our feet up. But no, it was Tobias Harris with 16, Duncan Robinson with 10, Jalen Duren with 11, Cade Cunningham obviously showing up and doing MVP caliber things, dropping 27 and leading the team. Thompson with 11, Isaiah Stewart with 10. I mean, multiple players, 6 players that I just listed that was scored in the double digits. That is more of the Detroit Pistons team that we knew and loved, that won 60 games in the regular season and was the number 1 seed in the East. It didn't look all pretty for 4 quarters, but the most important thing is he did enough in the third to be able to win the basketball game. So I will say that, yes, this is far more the Detroit Pistons team that I thought could make a run in the East, far more than we saw in game 1.
So, look, you're right. Everything, you're smart. And we all know this, Caroline. The thing for me, though, is that this game was tied at the half. Then it was up by 22, and then they win by 15. So there's a part of me, if I want to be a naysayer, there's a part of me that could say the Pistons have won 1 quarter in this whole series. And I realize they won the game, but they've won 1 quarter in this whole series. Like, I'm hard to please, or hard to impress, I should say, in the NBA playoffs, because I think I make my expectations of certain teams really transparent. Like, I think the Pistons should wipe the floor with the Orlando Magic. So I don't turn around and say, wow, we saw the real Pistons when this game was tied at the half. And I was literally sitting there thinking, are we going to do this again? Are they going to dig themselves into a hole? Like, what is this version of Detroit? So, yes, they get the win. Yes, the series is tied at 1 apiece. But, man, I'm going to pass on seeing the real Pistons, because if that is the real Pistons, they ain't going to the NBA Finals. That's not – it's going to be well short of those expectations. All right, how about another one here? Yesterday, Adam Silver went on the Pardon My Take podcast, said the Grizzlies aren't going anywhere, but that he'd like to see them play a few games every year in Nashville. He wants them to be viewed as Tennessee's team. Again, you and I have spent a lot of years living in and covering Nashville sports. Shoot, pass, or dribble, Adam Silver doesn't know the can of worms he just opened up.
Whoo, shoot on that. Like you mentioned, we both spend a lot of time in Nashville covering Nashville sports. My family is from Memphis. My mom grew up there. My grandparents, aunts and uncles, cousins all live in Memphis. Memphis is kind of like a second home to me. So I am very familiar with both of these 2 cities and the state of Tennessee in its entirety. Those 2 cities don't like each other. Memphis takes that personally. Memphis, I think, is offended by that, by especially Nashville. There is beef. There has always been deep-seated beef, especially now, more, I think more so than ever, the more and more that Nashville is booming as a city. I mean, there is not very good blood between Memphis and Nashville. Really, like, Memphis is kind of on an island in the state of Tennessee. Memphis doesn't like the rest of the state of Tennessee, and the rest of the state of Tennessee doesn't like Memphis. So I think for Memphis fans, for Grizzlies fans, the Grizzlies are what they have. That is their thing. And they're so passionate about their city, and they're so passionate about their team. That is, I think, the heart and soul of the city of Memphis, is the people that live there and that are from there and that adore this city and its culture and what it represents. Nashville represents almost everything that Memphis isn't. It's transplant, it's flashy, it's very nouveau riche, it's new, and I love Nashville. But I think for Adam Silver to say, yeah, we're going to give Nashville a little bit of what makes Memphis special, that I think Memphis fans take that very, very personally. And Memphis fans take it personally that they have to share what's theirs with the rest of the state.
I am stunned that the commissioner of the NBA can know so little about a state that he has a team in, honestly. I've done a weekly phone interview with the Memphis radio station for almost a decade. I know Memphis well. I know Nashville well, living there for over 20 years. You're right, Caroline. These 2 cities have a totally different fiber. They have a totally different wiring, and they do not like each other. There is zero interest in Nashville and Memphis sharing anything. Tennessee is a state that has different sections, different areas. There is no desire by Memphis to share with Nashville, and frankly, no desire by Nashville to share with Memphis. People often forget the first year of the Tennessee Titans, they played in Memphis as the Memphis Oilers. The Tennessee Oilers was their first year while they were waiting for the stadium to be built. And when they moved to Nashville, I lived there at the time. Nashville wanted nothing to do with the Oilers branding, not just because of Houston, but specifically because it had been used in Memphis. For Adam Silver to be unaware of that is stunning to me. Totally out of touch by the commissioner of the NBA. Memphis has no desire to do it. All right, from out of touch to in touch with absolutely everything. How about superstar guest power? Coming up next, Stephon Marbury going to join us. Can't wait for this.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, and they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
What's the appropriate reaction to Jon Scheyer and where he stands right now?
Taking a step back and taking a measured look at everything. And one of the issues that Duke has is they basically have a new team every year. A lot of the Duke players don't have that memory bank. So you have to look at that, like you have to be able to put those players in as many game situations and practice as you can.
Taylen Green's like raw arm talent is kind of insane.
Down the field, he has more accuracy than short throws. Like he struggles throwing short, and it's the most bizarre thing. So with Green, is like, is this just what he is? Some guys just throw how they throw, no matter what you do.
I do think if you are trying to like really take the swing somewhere outside the top 100, it's a 3% chance. But I'm at least at 3 with him as opposed to like 0 with most of the other guys.
Now Sutherland to send it away. Deep man will be Arlen Bruce. Bruce angling near side, going to play it off the wall. Tough one, but he scoops it at the 2. Bruce gets crushed.
He gets drawn right into this, and boy, that is a big collision there.
Myler going to throw for the first time, and down he goes.
Fishers is playing with an edge. Naylor had nowhere to go with the ball. He had to eat it and take that hit.
That is a row of star power in the Garden to watch the Knicks take on the Hawks the other night. And we have one of those guys with us now. Some people need no introduction, but it's my job to introduce him anyway. 13-year NBA vet, 2-time All-Star, 2-time All-NBA guard, Stephon Marbury. Stephon, we appreciate your time, man. Welcome. Thanks for that. You're wearing the Knicks hat. You got the Knicks vibe. Like, this is good, man. How we feeling about the Knicks?
Feeling great, man. I mean, you know, it's the playoffs, and there's no better time for basketball to be seen and for people to have discussions about what's going on in the game of basketball. So I'm happy to be here, and thanks for having me on your show.
I mean, there is no doubt that this is one of the best times in the sports calendar and the best time of the year in the NBA. I want to get right to it, to your Knicks. If you can't tell, if you're watching at home and you can't tell, Knicks supporter over here, you know the media market and the pressure cooker that is the New York media. And Karl Anthony Towns has been criticized heavily by the New York media and Knicks fans by being a little bit too passive in that fourth quarter against Atlanta in the Game 2 loss. Can Cat bounce back in Game 3?
Of course he could bounce back. You know, it's a series of 7. So, you know, you're going to have some ups and downs in the series. The most important thing is for us to figure it out in a way in which we can start playing consistent. Cat, he's been solid. He didn't have the year that everyone expected him to have, but he had an all-star season. He's an all-NBA player. You know, he's high value. So we look at him when he doesn't play, you know, that 25 and 20 game, when he doesn't have those type of games, you know, we look at him a little funny, but he's good. He'll be solid. He'll finish up the series strong.
But that's one thing that's crazy to me, right? Like if you have a bad night, if you play for the Bucks and you go out to dinner after you have a bad night, Milwaukee, the guys at the restaurant are going to say like, oh man, we'll get him next time. You got a bad night in New York, the guy that's giving you a slice is going to absolutely chew you apart. What's the pressure cooker do for two guys like Cat?
That's all of us, even me, even when I played, before I played, when I played, and after I played. It's just New York. It's just who we are. You know, I think that's our way of motivating you because obviously we love them and we want them to do well and we want them to win. I think for Cat, this is brand new for him. This is different from Minnesota. This is not the same as, completely different atmosphere. And now you have, instead of one beat writer writing about you, you have like 9 beat writers writing about you. So that's completely different, answering one question from one person opposed to 9.
So I want to stick on that for a little bit. I mean, you mentioned you've heard all of it, you've seen all of it. I mean, I'm sure have heard the noise. What's the wildest or craziest or weirdest headline or thing that you've seen written or said about you and your team?
Okay, Stephon Marbury is the most reviled athlete in New York City sports history. that that one right there was
Gosh,
that
that is
was the one.
brutal.
That was the one. I was like, damn, who voted for that?
Did you like being the villain in that sense, like WWE
Look,
style?
I wasn't a villain. I just, people don't know everything. They don't know all of what went on. And it's funny, you have these podcasts now where people speak and talk. I don't think my spats but Isaiah Thomas were as vigilant as people think. I think, what went on during my time period was during the era with Larry Brown. And I think it was just communication and how men spoke to men. And I think he didn't really respect that. So finding a man that did respect the way how they were spoken to, because of the way how their father spoke, how we spoke to my father and how my father spoke to us. It's just a line of communication. And, it wasn't happening with me.
So Mike Brown, coach of the New York Knicks, obviously was under a lot of fire after that game 2 collapse because, Cat and Jalen Brunson were together on the bench for a combined more than 11 minutes. His lineups and his rotations were under fire. You know Tom Thibodeau, former head coach of the New York Knicks. You played under him in Boston. Are the Knicks better now under the leadership of Mike Brown than they were last season under Tibbs?
If you look at their record says that they're better. But the record doesn't necessarily say if they're a better team or not. I think Mike Brown, he came in a situation where a team that was a very defensive-minded team, they had, if you watch our team last year, our defense, that's what we lived and we died on. And then now you bring a offensive juggernaut into the mix. So now you have both. At the beginning of the year, our defense was non-existent. We lost the 3 games we lost, or how many games we lost in a row. We were like non-existent on the court on defense. It was like, who are these guys? I don't know these guys. I've been watching these guys all year. And then now, they make the switch. And then now their defense comes together, and then their offense starts to click. So when you say better, they 2 different style coaches. We have a better record. Does that mean that he's a better coach than Tibbs? No, that doesn't mean that he's a better coach in some people's eyes. It's a preference in what you want and what players you have on the team to be able to mix and blend, and then that coach be able to go on the basketball court and say, okay, I can put this group on the court so we could win, to try to win the championship.
So stick with winning championships for a second, because Dolan said coming into the year that part of the reason he made the change is this is a team that should be in the NBA Finals. You've seen them up close and personal. Is this an NBA Finals caliber Knicks team?
I think we are. I think we are a NBA caliber championship team. As one of my friends said, we're just not elite yet. And I think during this course, as we try to win 16 games to hold up the trophy, we will learn how to become elite. We will learn what we need to do. Like the last game we lost, when we played tonight, how are we gonna respond? How are we gonna rebound from last game into this game tonight? Like, what are the things that we're gonna do differently, or how are we gonna adjust? You know what I'm saying? That will show us on our path and on the road towards us trying to win the championship, how we respond.
I don't want to look too far ahead because I never want to, wish basketball away. We've got great basketball games ahead of us over the next month or so. But I do think that Giannis's next landing spot will be the number one story of the NBA offseason. He's come out and said and has, drawn a line in the sand that he wants to be in New York. He wants to be a New York Knick. What would you think of Giannis in a Knicks uniform next season? And is that a move the Knicks should make?
I mean, it depends on who's leaving, right? And what decisions are going to be made based upon what we need. We win the championship this year, nothing is happening. Okay? That's staying the same. If we don't win the championship, because of these are, I don't even want to talk about if we don't, because I'm sticking with what I believe. I don't believe in plan B. It distracts from plan A. But I do believe that on the business side, just taking my New York hat off and basically keeping it 100 as a basketball player, I think if we don't win the championship as a person looking at it, and a fan, obviously there will probably be some changes. And if you added a guy like the Freak, you know exactly what you're going to get on both ends of the court. You know what energy you're going to get. You know what kind of style you're going to get. So you have to make sure you put pieces around that. You have to recognize that Jalen is a ball-dominant player. So is the Freak. So now you got to get two guys to blend the mix, right? In which that is going to take some chemistry, tug of warring. You got what I'm saying? So you got two superstars that are amazing, but two superstars that command the basketball coast to coast, not just like set it up, pointing where you're going. That's what he's doing, like telling people where to go, doing whatever you want to do, right? So now that style in which how we play now, you look at our style with Coach Brown. Do you see Giannis fitting into that style and that same system? A lot of people say he's a hooper. He can play. So you can put him in any situation. I believe the same thing. But that's going to take some time and them playing together for them to get used to each other in order to win the championship. So now we got to grow through this process again of learning, the learning curve of guys playing together, brand new and all of this and that. And not knowing when you cut back door and not knowing when you want the ball, when you want it here. So you got to go through all of that. So you got to think about all of that stuff. You know what I'm saying? Hat back on.
Given the fact, I always find this interesting, right? Because the Knicks haven't won at the highest level in a long time, right? And most teams that don't win championships just sort of get forgotten. But they're the Knicks, right? For the kids that are coming up now, why does Madison Square Garden, why do the Knicks, why does that matter to a basketball kid that might be 19 years old that has never really seen greatness from the organization?
Okay. It's the Mecca. New York is basketball to a lot of people. To me, other places, people feel what they feel for their place. I feel that. But I think everyone can distinguish when they come to Madison Square Garden, they can recognize that energy by itself because it's a bunch of amazing artist talent that has graced this arena. So you're getting everyone's absolute best when they come inside Madison Square Garden. I seen one musician, they got a billboard, they got a poster of him. He says, you haven't played anywhere if you haven't played in Madison Square Garden. So, that right there in itself, it says what the Garden, what it means to not just our generations and the generations before us, but the generations that are coming after us.
I mean, I wholeheartedly believe the epicenter of American basketball is New York City, is Madison Square Garden. But another capital, it is just that simple. Another basketball capital of the U.S., though, is Boston. It's a place that you also know very well. You did play for the
100%.
Boston Celtics. You You played under Doc Rivers. You know, he didn't have the greatest tenure in Milwaukee recently. He was recently just let go, and he said, look, hey, Google me. I got a long history of winning a lot of basketball in this league. What was your reaction to things kind of coming off the rails in Milwaukee under the tutelage of Doc Rivers?
I mean, I think as players, we got to adjust during the eras that, when it shifts. And I think the same goes for coaches. What you did then, no one cares. Everybody only cares about what you're doing right now. And I think, he's a coach who has won games. He's developed guys. He's done well for himself, business-wise, from going to different jobs, broadcasting. So he has a great deal of knowledge of the game. Boston in itself, I mean, playing there, I learned so much playing in Boston. Boston helped me when I went on to play basketball in China, winning championships, being able to sit inside of that arena, looking up at the banners. Like, it was so inspiring and so, inspirational for me, because my name and my numbers inside of the locker, they do something really cool in which every player that wore a jersey number, they put their name in the locker. So the next player who wears the jersey, they know who represented that number. So their history and how winning is supposed to be layered and how it's supposed to be spoken about and how it should be received, it all embodies the championships of their characteristics and them being able to be one of the greatest, if not the greatest franchise in the world in basketball. So, I have nothing but respect, and I'm super thankful to Boston for giving me the opportunity when things didn't go well in New York. They gave me the chance to be able to show face that, the champions felt that I was good enough to come and play for them.
Man, we could talk ball with you all day. And when the Knicks make it to the NBA Finals, you got to come out and hang out with us again, Stephon. We appreciate it. Come on. I'm putting the feeler out. So we appreciate your time, man. Y'all follow him on Twitter, at Starbury Marbury. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys.
Thank
absolute
you. Appreciate
legend,
it.
absolute icon, absolute beast. Speaking of beasts, George Pickens is a beast on the field, but now there's a beast worth of drama. We'll tell you about it next.
Kalen Deboer in a very interesting situation. He's got a quarterback competition between Austin Mack, who's a guy he brought from Washington, who's been on Alabama's roster for 2 years, and Keelan Russell. Very interesting spring game, as it looked like Russell was further along than Austin Mack.
Do you go get the message board analysis? That's my favorite, where it's like, on that completion, I'm going to tell you what, the spiral looked a little bit tighter. The scrutiny applied to these like skeleton drills. God bless April.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, Fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you gonna just kick right to him? Look at that. Who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's gonna try to go low on him.
I mean, in some of these clips, your ability to fight over screens. Is this something that you had to learn over time, or is this something that you've always had?
I think that I naturally always was able to switch. I think that I've always naturally been quick on my feet. I just think more so like maybe like low tendencies or more so like low details, which I'm still working on. But I think that like, those little things that like makes the difference between a good defender and a great defender.
Things have gotten complicated in Dallas. I know that doesn't feel breaking, but this is Cowboys Executive Vice President Stephen Jones told reporters today they've decided George Pickens will play on the franchise tag this season. There won't be talks on a long-term deal. They're not even discussing it with him. They're basically saying, go out, play on this 1 year, and we'll figure it out later. Now, ESPN's Todd Archer also pointed out Pickens does have the right to sit out until week 10 of the regular season in order to gain the accredited year and hit free agency. So that for anyone that doesn't know, the franchise tag is 1 year, the average of the top 5 at your position. They have to pay you that. And then if you choose not to take it, if you choose to just sit out the whole season, they own your rights next year. So you can't sit out all year. But if you report by week 10, it will count. So is that where we're headed? Does it look like this is about to get ugly, Caroline?
It's kind of how it feels right now. Because if George Pickens hasn't signed the franchise tag yet, what would make any of us think that he's going to all of a sudden change his mind? So, look, I will always, clown Jerry Jones in the Cowboys organization whenever I can. And I do think they are partly responsible for this. But also at the same time, let's not forget that George Pickens wasn't necessarily the easiest player to get along with or a player that had a great track record going back to his time in Pittsburgh. There's a big reason why the Pittsburgh Steelers did want to move on from George Pickens. That doesn't take anything away from what he is as a player and what he did for the Cowboys last season, because George Pickens was the best receiver on the Cowboys roster last year. I know CeeDee Lamb exists. George Pickens was the best receiver on that roster. I think he probably feels like he has earned more and he deserves more. So whatever the reason is that the Cowboys don't have interest, or maybe George Pickens doesn't have interest in negotiating a long-term deal, I think they're both culpable. Both sides are responsible for that. But Fitz, I want to know why now? Why now, in late April, before the draft, are you already getting out ahead of this and saying we aren't going to negotiate? Like, I listened to Stephen Jones' press conference yesterday, and he was kind of gaslighting everybody in the room by saying, look, we do this a lot. Dak Prescott played under the franchise tag. Yeah, Dak Prescott played under the franchise tag because you were having discussions about a long-term deal and you couldn't come to an agreement. So it went into the 11th hour. He played under the franchise tag, and then you came to a longer-term agreement. But they're saying, like, he's playing under the franchise tag because they have no interest in having long-term discussions, and you're drawing the line in the sand on that right now, today, in April? The timing on that is very strange to me.
Yeah, because they're trying to trade him tonight. I mean, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. There's such a, we always say match made in heaven. Everything about this is a match made in hell. Everything about this entire situation. Because if you're the Cowboys, well, you got to make a decision to invest incredible money in Pickens, who, by the way, last year earned it. He looked like a clear number one. So now all of a sudden you got to figure out how you're going to keep things right between Pickens and CeeDee. And are you going to do the Bengals type thing where you're playing multiple wide receivers, a ton of money? But you also have a Pickens, let's not forget, that was benched, suspended, whatever we want to say it, for the beginning of the game against the Raiders last season because he missed the team bus. There were wild reports from casinos that said he and CeeDee Lamb were all out all night. Is that what you want to do? To when you're investing in your number one receiver that, frankly, seemed at least like he wasn't interested in committing to the work in that particular week? I don't know that I'd love the feeling of giving guaranteed money to the person that, frankly, when he was playing for what he knew was going to be a massive contract, still managed to get in his own way, even if it was only a minor infraction. So I think there's reason for pause. Let's remember, an organization already gave up on George Pickens. An organization that needed wide receivers gave up on George Pickens. But the flip side of all of this is if I'm Pickens and you just told me we're not interested in even having a conversation, I'm not coming in. I will absolutely, if I'm George Pickens right now, I would absolutely sit on my tush, wait all the way until week 10, and then in week 10, I'm going to come in and it's like, man, I got this thing in my back. I just can't really figure it out. Oh, I'm reporting, but I don't feel great about practicing, and I don't step on the field. That's the power that a player does have. There are certain injuries that we can't really go in or prove or disprove. So certainly George Pickens can come in and just have nagging pain that he doesn't feel like he can get through, and he can screw the Cowboys. So to me, this entire situation blows up, Caroline, because frankly, the Cowboys saying that they're not even interested in negotiating right now is wild. And if I'm Pickens, that's a reason I'm going to stay away. So the only resolution that truly makes sense to me is if in the first round of the draft, George Pickens gets traded.
And it does make sense why the Cowboys wouldn't want to have long-term extension talks, because if you're planning on trading this guy, he's much easily tradable if he's not signed to a long-term deal. I mean, tag and trades happen all the time in the National Football League. I think it's buyer beware for a team that is not only trading the draft capital for George Pickens, but understanding that you don't trade for George Pickens unless you're also extending him. So you're paying the draft capital and you're paying the money. That's going to have to come from a team that is in an absolute positive win now mode, which we could see. Maybe it's the Bills, a wide receiver needy team. Maybe it's the Patriots, another wide receiver needy team. TBD on the A.J. Brown situation. But the Cowboys can't trade George Pickens unless he signs the franchise, unless he signs the franchise tag. You cannot trade a player that has not signed the tag yet. So, I mean, to your point, this is George Pickens kind of exercising the power that he does have. I do think under the existing CBA, players don't have a whole lot of leverage. Most of the leverage lies with the team owners and with the teams themselves. But if George Pickens is like, no, I'm not giving you the power to trade me away, then he's not going to sign that franchise tag. Then he's not giving the Cowboys power over his own rights. But that is a sticky situation that if he doesn't sign the franchise tag, then what?
I'm left to wonder. Look, I just looked it back up. The original trade, George Pickens in a 2027 6th round pick is what the Cowboys got. And they gave up a 2026 3rd and a 2027 5th. So we're basically talking about a 3rd round pick and a
bag
pick
of peanuts.
Like when you like nothing. I'm sitting here looking, and we all know that we talked a lot on this show a few days ago about wide receiver, and is wide receiver really worth the value? And the answer is typically no. If you are a team that believes that George Pickens is worth that value, he's worth signing. Even if you're picking at the beginning of day 2, if you have a pick in the first 3 or 4 of the 2nd round of the draft, are you calling the Cowboys? I think that's the message. When they say we're not even talking to him, I think what they're telling the rest of the league is we're talking to you guys. You want Pickens. He is available. We will trade him away. So now the question is, what becomes fair in return? Pickens absolutely blew up last year in a good way. Like, he played at a level that I think makes it unquestionable that he can step in anywhere and be the number 1 receiver somewhere. So if you're a team that is just, you feel like you're a receiver away from taking a massive leap forward and you can acquire Pickens, not for a day 1 pick, but for a day 2 pick, wouldn't you do that 10 times out of 10? I mean, I feel like the only advantage, the only reason that the Cowboys are saying this is either they are so cocky and flippant that, hey, we hold your rights, there ain't a damn thing you can do about it, so let's play chicken, or they're telling the rest of the league, give us a call. And if the rest of the league, if we see teams that are sitting there at the top of the 2nd round that couldn't quite get to the receiver they wanted, why would you not 100 times out of 100 make the call to the Cowboys? Because Pickens is better than anybody you're going to get in the 2nd round as long as you're comfortable paying him epic star money.
Which begs the question, why are the Cowboys not entertaining a long-term deal? Why are the Cowboys, at least we presume, open to trading George Pickens? George Pickens is 25 years old. George Pickens is coming off of a 1,500-yard season. George Pickens was your leading receiver last year. George Pickens was a massive reason why Dak Prescott looked like a league MVP and the Dallas Cowboys were statistically in the top 5 of every single offensive category in the NFL this past year. Like, Jerry Jones talked about how they want to win a Super Bowl. They feel like they are in a Super Bowl window. So why does it feel like every time the Cowboys take 1 step forward, they willingly and voluntarily take 2 steps back? You're going to trade away Micah Parsons, an elite defensive player in his prime, and then your defense looks dreadful, and then you try and make up for it with a Quinnen Williams trade? And then you, the next year, actively and openly, how many 4 months before the season, come out and say that our reigning leading receiver, who is in his prime, maybe even hasn't reached his prime yet, that we're not interested in discussing a long-term deal, which then would lead us to believe that they're interested and open to trading him? What? I feel so bad for Cowboys fans. And really, Fitz, I feel bad for Dak Prescott. I mean, Dak Prescott, I felt like, has only done right by the Cowboys organization, playing under the franchise tag. And I don't think he's been really openly, aggressive toward the organization when any other, star player for any other organization could be. And I think would be valid in being frustrated with it. But I feel like Dak Prescott has been nothing but loyal to the Dallas Cowboys, coming off of a 4,500-yard passing season. And this is how the organization repays him? It just feels like such bad business, and I don't understand what's going on behind the scenes with the Dallas Cowboys.
I had never thought about it until you just said it. But the fact is, how often do we see an NFL team with an MVP caliber quarterback constantly rip away pieces that would make that team better? That's what the Cowboys are constantly doing. They've constantly decided that they're smarter than everybody else and that the way they do it is just fine, even though it hasn't resulted in a Super Bowl in so long. You're right. I can't think of another example of a team that is just looked at it and said, we've got our quarterback. We paid our quarterback. We believe our quarterback is one of the best in the NFL. Now we're going to make their job more difficult intentionally every single year just because. Plenty more to break down. We'll see what this means for the draft. Again, Yahoo Sports got you covered for every pick in the draft tonight and tomorrow night. Watch us wherever you're watching us right now. In the meantime, coming up, we'll get thoughts on what the Chiefs are going to do with the draft. Hayley Lewis going to join us next. We'll get a big board for Kansas City.
If somebody stops you on the street and they say, Dion, what's Joe Brady like? What do you tell them?
Just a dope, cool dude from Florida that loves ball, you know, and he'll shoot you straight. He'll tell you what you need to, but he'll also laugh and tell a joke. And as a player, coach relationship, it's beautiful to have somebody that you know can turn it on and turn it off at any time.
What is going to happen inevitably in 6 months when you are tempted, when you have that itch, when the thoughts in the back of your mind say, you still got it. No one leaves on a winning streak.
That's what's going to happen.
Yes,
I know.
It's inevitable.
I've been around this sport long enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Is I would like to retire on a 4-fight win streak, then roll the dice, come back, get a loss, and then guess what happens? Then I'm going to get in this chase of wanting to get that loss back. And we see how that ends up for a lot of fighters.
What put you over the top to like, I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Ignetti really focusing on development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, like other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
We have the fake handoff. Nate Davis rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and then easy walking with a little bit of swaggy style in for a touchdown.
Yeah, the swaggy walk is as fast as his run. So that's what's...
Looked like maybe we were going to get a fake pick. Instead, wow, he is absolutely rolling, and now we have dueling quarterback runs all over the place. Oh, you love a good big board, and it's the NFL draft tonight. It all gets started, and the Chiefs are actually on the clock much sooner than we're used to. They have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. So Hayley Lewis is going to join us, friend of the show, give us the top 5 prospects on the big board. Hayley, appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us, NFL reporter for Bleacher Report. All right, so let's get the big board up. We're going to do this like God intended. Every countdown goes 5 to 1. So we'll start with number 5 on this countdown. So who's number 5 on the mystery Kansas City dream big board for you?
Okay, so this would be if I had the perfect world and everyone falls perfectly to me, the general manager for the Chiefs now, Hayley Lewis. If there was this guy available, and we're talking about the secondary, right, because of everything going on with the Chiefs losing Trent McDuffie, I put Mansour Delane up there. He's from LSU. I think that this is a solid kid. I don't think that he's flashy or anything by any means, but he's a real consistent corner in this class. Also, you know, when they lose not only McDuffie, they also lost Jalen Watson. They also lost, although a safety, Brian Cook. They're really thin back there. So I think that this would be a great guy for the Chiefs to have come in. He fits into Spag's scheme as well. Now, edge obviously is the biggest need, and they are definitely going to need to be getting after that soon, but corners could be found later on. Elite pass rushers they got to go with first. However, if this guy's available, my 5th out of 5 picks, I would put him as someone who could fall with the Chiefs.
Yeah, it kind of seems like right now, especially with some of the reports about Jamon McCoy's knee and his health, his availability, Mansour Lane's draft stock is absolutely skyrocketing. I was a little bit surprised, though, Haley, that Mansour Lane was 5th on your list, considering corner is such a massive need for the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's move on to 4. Who is your 4th player on the Chiefs' big board?
Okay, so I am now going to shift to the offensive side of things and go with the wide receiver out of Arizona State. We're going to go with Jordan Tyson. Again, a lot of people might have my head on a stake for these sorts of things, but you have to remember, you never know how the draft board is going to fall. So this is also a kid who could potentially have the upside of being a wide receiver 1 for the Chiefs one day. Yes, they have Xavier Worthy, but they kind of cleaned house in the receiver core as well after this offseason. And, they do have Rashee Rice, but he has continued to have some offseason issues creep up and follow him. So really, they need someone to come in who could be a potential target downfield for Patrick Mahomes one day. I think that this guy is physical. He can also create separation. So a good player for the Chiefs in their scheme, which would be working, obviously, with Mahomes having more protection and the different ways that they're hoping to use the offense coming into this next season. So for me, if he's there, this is a solid pick for the Chiefs. Obviously, again, we are going to be putting our edge way above any of the wide receivers or the secondary picks, but this guy happened to be, 4 out of 5 on my list.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to be honest, Haley. It's terrifying to think of giving a wide receiver weapon like that to this offense. I'll be honest about that. I'm scared to death of it. All right, well, who's number 3 then on Haley's big board? By the way, we're marching this big board into Andy Reid, so there's no doubt about it. So who's number 3?
Yes. Fabulous. As long as he will give me one of his Tommy Bahama t-shirts, I will be very happy to oblige. So I put another wide receiver on my list, Carnell Tate, Ohio State. It's a safer prospect, right? Cleaner evaluation, fewer question marks. When we were talking about Tyson, he has, a couple of injuries that he feels, or his hamstring that kind of limited him. But I feel like Tate is maybe the safer version. He's polished, he's consistent, he's probably more of a plug and play sort of guy. But if you're trying to give Mahomes a reliable target right now, this really could be the guy for it. Again, wide receiver isn't a premium as much as edge is, but the Chiefs historically don't necessarily go wide receiver this high unless he's super elite. And this guy is an elite person. So as you said, the Chiefs, this would scare you if the Chiefs were able to, get a guy like Tyson. Well, I also think that Tate could be another scary prospect for Kansas City.
I mean, if you're getting a wide receiver out of Ohio State, history would say pretty good pick, pretty good gamble. Before we get to your second pick, though, just listed 2 receivers at 3 and 4. There was a lot of discussion, rumors, just rumblings of a potential Tyreek Hill reunion in Kansas City. If the Chiefs do go wide receiver in this draft, what does that mean for Tyreek Hill's future?
I think the thing with Tyreek Hill is the fact that everyone's kind of reminiscing in what he used to be, right? He is a phenomenal receiver. He did incredible things for Kansas City, but he has been injury ridden. And, you have to bring in some of the off-field stuff. It's kind of caused him a little bit of either distraction or B, just the best way to say it is it's harder to bring someone back when things get messier and messier, right? So I think for the idea of Tyreek coming back, it makes fans reminisce. They get excited. They want to bring back the guy that helped them win their first Super Bowl alongside Patrick Mahomes in 2019. But I think it's less likely, especially due to the fact that he's coming back off of a very serious injury, and we don't even know if he would be healthy for week 1. So I think it's time for the Chiefs to kind of move on from that regime and start fresh. Now, they're not starting fresh all the way around. They are bringing in some old staff and a few players who are coming back to the Chiefs. But I do think that storyline is a bit more of a feel-good rather than reality.
All right, so let's go to your big board then, and let's figure out, now that we've got a couple wide receivers here, who's next on your big board? Who's coming in at numero 2?
Let's go back to the defense, because that is where the Chiefs are in dire needs of everything pretty much, but especially in the secondary. This time I go safety. I go Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. Now, why do I think? I think he might be the best player in the entire draft, dare I say. He also fits Steve Spagnuolo's scheme almost perfectly. He can play anywhere, inside, outside, deep, box, nickel. This is a guy who can be really versatile, and this is exactly what the Chiefs ask of anyone pretty much in their secondary. So I think that he would be really good potential value too as well if he fell to the Chiefs at number 9. He creates turnovers. He can play downhill. He's able to kind of erase tight ends. And again, the talent you always get when you dip into the Ohio State pool is going to be elite. So I think that this would be a really good fit for Kansas City. And if Kansas City goes 2 defensive picks in the first round, I don't think anybody's going to be upset. So this would also be another person to keep your eyes on, and especially know going into the first round here tonight.
No. Caroline, I'm not allowing it. I'm not allowing Caleb Downs to go to the Chiefs. It's just, as a guy that usually does this show with the Raiders helmet behind me, I object. I will not allow this to happen. Go ahead, Caroline. I want to state my objection for the record. I do not. This is not allowed to happen. Go ahead.
This is the same way I felt about Kenneth Walker III going to Kansas City. I'm like, it's the same way that like the government interferes to make sure that there's no monopolies in business. Like, surely Roger Goodell has to do something about this. Like, we do not let the rich get richer like this. So if in the offseason you get Kenneth Walker and Caleb Downs, putting my pick in, it's Kansas City going back to the Super Bowl. But Hayley, I've been picking up on some breadcrumbs that you've been dropping. So I kind of have a thought of what position this could be at number 1, but I will give you the floor, your number 1 pick on your big board.
All right, drum roll, please. I think it's going to be obvious to everyone. We have Ruben Bain coming out of Miami. This is the edge that Kansas City, not only, I hate to say even quietly linked to. This has been something that's been very vocal, almost to the point where people say he's linked to Kansas City a little too much, to where they think the Chiefs might be playing some tricks on who they're actually going to be going after and targeting. But Kansas City needs an edge. For the love of God, they need one. Yes, Chris Jones is still elite. Karlaftis is solid, but they need someone who can consistently win off the edge. 71 pressures, 9.5 sacks in 2025. Already had a top 30 visit with the Chiefs as well, so real interest in this guy. I think that this one just makes so much sense. Again, they need a pass rusher, period. They need a pass rush, just in general. The Chiefs are definitely desperate there. He's also versatile. He can move inside, outside, kind of around, and that fits for the scheme with Spagnuolo as well. But again, he could be an immediate impact for the Chiefs right away, and that is absolutely what they need. So this is my number 1 guy. If the Chiefs do something crazy tonight, folks, and they trade up in the first round, it would only be for this player.
Is a T-Rex not available? Like, we're not worried about the tiny arms? Like, we're not worried about the little little arms going after
T-Rex? Oh my God! Listen. There are some concerns. Obviously, there are concerns with the arm length and everything. But I think when you look at a guy as vested as Brett Veach and being able to get the correct talent into the Chiefs facility, if he's hot on him, I'm gonna be hot on him. If that makes sense. I think that this is the guy that the Chiefs need to lock in. And I mean, sometimes it's a little bandwagony because there's been so much hype around it. And that's why I said I was worried maybe the Chiefs are playing some trickery. Are you guys doing what you did back in 2017 when you drafted up to pick Mahomes and then you made everyone else think you were doing something completely different? Maybe that's what's going on here tonight, but I have a gut feeling that Kansas City might be aggressive here in the first round to get this kid.
I love a good smoke screen during the NFL draft. And look, I think all of these picks, your entire big board, not only elite players, but also fills need. Check some of those important draft night boxes. But one player that I didn't see on your list is Kenyon Sadiq, the tight end out of Oregon. We know that Travis Kelce is coming back for at least one more year, but Father Time, the clock is ticking. Would you be surprised to see the Chiefs potentially draft the heir apparent to Travis Kelce?
Surprise may not be the correct word. I could see it happening, obviously, like you said, with Travis Kelce coming back this year and everyone getting so confused thinking he's returning for 3 years. But really, again, the mirage that he is going to be there for the next 3 years is funny to even think. But they really do have to start thinking about who's going to be that guy. And if it can't be Noah Gray taking on the full load of what Travis Kelce's production was, could it be a young stud out of Oregon? And this is, again, a program that has continued to bring out elite talent. What Dan Lanning is doing with that team is phenomenal. So I wouldn't be surprised, but I just don't foresee Kansas City with the needs that they have defensively making a tight end position trump what they need to get at edge. Now, again, it depends on how it falls, right? Best available. It's the biggest cliche of opening night for the NFL draft. And I hate even saying it myself, but if things shake out the way that they do and they have a kid that is best available on their draft board, I think they have 215 players on their board, according to Veach. And he even said that it should be very entertaining, quote, Brett Veach, opening night for Thursday. There should be a lot of trades, is what he had to say. So we shall see. I wouldn't be surprised by anything. But this would, maybe the best way to say this is I don't foresee it happening. I think that they have to address the defensive holes before they cross the line to who is going to be replacing, because they have at least a Band-Aid for one more year.
So for better or for worse, what's the thing that could happen in the draft that will make Chiefs fans lose their mind? It can be good or bad, but what's the thing that's going to make everybody go apoplectic?
If they get an offensive tackle. I mean, the offensive tackle fatigue is real. It's been year after year after year after year, and the development is either lacking or the talent scope, figuring out who is going to come in for Kansas City and actually be able to protect for Mahomes, is not working correctly. Something's off with that analysis, that equation. So if they go after an offensive tackle in the first round, I think what it tells me, the Chiefs are far more concerned about the O-line than they're letting on, or that we know. I don't want to see that happen, but it very well could, again, if it falls that way. So that for me would be not concerned specifically about Josh Simmons, who they have there right now, but it would just show me that as a whole for the line, they're a little more desperate for talent than we think they are. We'll see. I think people will lose their mind though, especially after years and years and years of this and it continuing to kind of have the same outcome. They get hurt or they don't get otherwise.
Yeah, I think I'm going to lose my mind if any of these. I just keep looking at your big board, Hayley, and realizing how many good players there are that the Chiefs get at. It's just not. It's fine. It's fine. Drink. It's fine. It's fine.
It's crazy. It's crazy they can be able to get a talent within the top 10. Like, that's just wild to think of.
Yeah, well,
wild.
Be a Raiders fan for a minute. We get used to top 10 picks. We just never get them right. All right, you guys can read her on Bleacher Report. Obviously, follow her on social media, Twitter, X, at Hayley Lewis _. Hayley, always appreciate your time, my friend. Enjoy the draft. It's going to be chaos, but we appreciate you hanging out with us.
Thank you, guys. Hopefully we can check in maybe next week and see what actually happened, if any of these predictions came true. But chaotic night tonight. You guys have fun.
You too.
GM Hayley.
Absolutely it. Somehow I'm not going to feel better about the Raiders because of what the Chiefs do. What's that man going to do? Will Jeremiah Love be off the board at 3? We'll figure it out.
Johnson to the end zone, caught. Guess who? C.J. Jefferson.
And in talking to the coaches this week, I mean, they said that's your playmaker. That's the guy that Jerome Johnson has the most confidence in. And there you are on 4th and goal, and you throw it right at the goal line, right at the yellow line at the wall. Terrific throw. Nice catch.
Great execution there for New Mexico. They had to have a play.
What's the appropriate reaction to John Shire and where he stands right now?
Taking a step back and taking a measured look at everything. And one of the issues that Duke has is they basically have a new team every year. A lot of the Duke players don't have that memory bank. So you have to look at that, like you have to be able to put those players in as many game situations and practice as you can.
Taylon Green's like raw arm talent is kind of insane.
Down the field, he has more accuracy than short throws. Like he struggles throwing short, and it's the most bizarre thing. So with Green, is like, is this just what he is? Some guys just throw how they throw, no matter what you do.
I do think if you are trying to like really take the swing somewhere outside the top 100, it's a 3% chance. But I'm at least at 3 with him as opposed to like 0 with most of the other guys.
Now Sutherland to send it away. Deep man will be Arlen Bruce. Bruce angling near side, going to play it off the wall. Tough one, but he scoops it at the 2. Bruce gets crushed.
He gets drawn right into this, and boy, that is a big collision there.
Myler going to throw for the first time, and down he goes.
Fishers is playing with an edge. Naylor had nowhere to go with the ball. He had to eat it and take that hit.
It's draft day, and Yahoo Sports has you covered for all of it. The NFL Draft Live Show. Got Siciliano, we got Nate Tice, we got Matt Harmon, we got Charles Robinson, we got Charles McDonald, and me on Thursday and Friday reacting to everything you need to know from the 2026 NFL Draft. It is going to be a wild night. It always is. We always have a blast. You can watch that wherever you're watching us. So on the Yahoo Sports Network, you can watch it on YouTube. You can watch it everywhere. And that means it's time to talk a little about Lions season, because we all know that with draft day comes, of course, rumors. And we also know that many of the rumors are just lies. So that's what we're going to figure out. We're going to figure out what's true and what's not true with buying or lying smoke and mirrors NFL edition. So we're going to take out the rumor and then figure out if we're buying it or if it's lying. Caroline, Jeremiah Love going off the board at number 3. Buying or lying that rumor?
They're lying. They have to be. They have to be lying. There's no way that this is what the Arizona Cardinals are actually going to do, because if you're picking at 3 in an incredibly unpredictable draft where, we know what number 1 is going to be. We know Fernando Mendoza will be a Raider. Outside of that, it is all a big fat question mark. So there's no way that you can convince me that the Arizona Cardinals are dumb enough to show their cards as early as they did, coming out point blank and saying, we're going to take Jeremiah Love if nobody wants to trade up with us. Like, there is just absolutely no way. So I think that they're lying here. And also, I think the Cardinals probably need a pass rusher more than they need a running back. You can't strictly draft for need, especially when you have the opportunity to get an elite playmaker at 3, like the Cardinals have the opportunity to do here. I don't buy it, Fitzy. I think they're lying.
Yeah, 100%. I think this is a lie. And any of these smoke screens that come out, you got to figure out who's a benefit, right? We talk about that all the time. Well, frankly, the rumor that the Cardinals are considering taking Jeremiah at 3 actually benefits the Titans, who I think will take him at 4. And it benefits them because it softens the blow for everybody that says, oh, you can't take a running back that high. Well, Arizona was going to take him at 3. Like, that's where you end up getting all of these conversation shifters, right? So to me, this just, when I look at who benefits from the rumor that they're considering Love at 3, well, certainly the Cardinals don't benefit from that getting out, right? The Jets don't really see one way or the other. Maybe the Titans benefit, maybe Jeremiah Love benefits, but all of that leads me to think that they are lying in this one. How about this one? Next up, no one knows if Jerry can pull off a trade, since just yesterday he struggled to shake Bill Clinton's hand without falling, but lots of smoke behind the Cowboys' love for Sonny Styles and a possible move up. You see it here. That's President Clinton coming into the room. Jerry gets up. I can't fault him too much for this. I trip over my own feet all the time, but that's usually me by the end of the draft broadcast. Just trying to get up from the desk and falling because my legs fell asleep. But gives us a moment to laugh at Jerry a little bit. So, are you buying the rumors, or are they lying that the Cowboys are in love with Sonny Styles and potentially willing to move up to take the star linebacker?
I totally buy this. I don't think this is a lie. In fact, I think this is what the Cowboys should do. I think the Cowboys should trade up and get one of these elite defensive players. Now, the interesting thing about this draft is it's crowded. There's going to be a really great player, whether it's a Sonny Styles, whether it's a Caleb Downs, whether it's an Arvell Reese. Like, one of these great elite defensive players is going to fall to the 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 range. So the Cowboys can kind of enjoy the fruits of sitting back and waiting for one of these great players to fall to somewhere in the Browns stratosphere at 6. So I do very much so buy this. And it's also because the Cowboys need a linebacker. If only they had an elite linebacker in his prime just a couple of years ago. If only. But I think the Cowboys are still chasing what they lost in the Mike Parsons trade, but that doesn't mean that you just, you live with it. It means that you try and fill that hole, and that's what Sonny Styles can do. So I totally buy this.
Yeah, I buy it because it makes a ton of sense, but also the Cowboys have so many needs. I have no problem with Dallas staying right where they are, 12-20, and just taking the best defensive player on the board in both of those. In fact, if the Pickens thing is going to get more complicated, and it looks like it might, I wonder if they'll need that second first-round pick to try and address wide receivers. So while I think the rumor makes sense, and it makes a ton of sense for the Cowboys to be looking at moving up. I just don't know if long-term is one Sonny Styles suddenly going to fix the entire Dallas Cowboys defense, or do they need multiple players that can plug and play and have a better chance of doing that if they keep their 2 picks in the first round? So I don't think this is a lie. I also wouldn't fault anybody involved if it doesn't come to fruition. So I'm sort of stuck in the middle. Another shocking rumor we saw yesterday came from Tom Pelissero. Apparently, there's a small possibility, according to Tom, that we could see Carson Beck go in round 1, and we'll likely see him come off the board in round 2. Are you buying the rising draft stock of one Carson Beck?
What are we doing? What are we doing, Fitz? This was the story that made me say, it's time. It's time for the draft to get here. I love smokescreens and gossip and rumors, but sometimes we get to a point where we run out of rumors and we're like, let's just make something up. Like Carson Beck going in the first round. This is ridiculous. This is not going to happen. I would be way less shocked if Carson Beck didn't get drafted at all. Like, I think that is far more in the realm of possibility. Don't believe me? Just look at how many times Miami asked Carson Beck to throw in the first several games in the college football playoff. I think he combined to throw 20 passes in the first handful of games in the college football playoff. They didn't trust him. They did not trust him. They leaned far more on the running game in their defense, and it worked. It worked. I don't see this happening at all. This is just the ultimate draft rumor, using the media at your disposal to kind of try and push your own narrative. There is zero, and I am telling you, zero merit or truth to any of this, mostly because, Fitz, this is the first time we've really heard Carson Beck's name throughout the draft process. We haven't heard Carson Beck's name at all being discussed throughout the entirety of the last several months that we've been talking about the draft. I don't think it's a coincidence that it's a 11th hour story that's just kind of thrown out there.
If you are selecting Carson Beck in the first or second round, you're telling the world you think that Carson Beck can be a starting quarterback that takes you to the playoffs. That is such a far cry from how we perceive Carson Beck right now. I'm shocked. Carson Beck belongs in the same conversation as Dylan Gabriel was in last year, where it's like, yeah, somebody's going to pick him, but kind of who cares, right? Like he's going to go somewhere and maybe have a chance to try and win his way onto a roster, but it's not a needle mover. And to me, if Carson Beck got picked in the third round, I'd be surprised. So to your point, Caroline, sure, maybe somebody picks him somewhere because they want to grow and develop a backup quarterback, which is what you do in the 4th, 5th, 6th round when you're just taking a stab at a quarterback. To take him on day 1 or even, frankly, early on day 2 would be an indication to your fan base that you believe that Carson Beck can lead you to the promised land. Now, I'm not somebody that thinks that next year's quarterback class is something you can bank on, but certainly I do, if I run an NFL team, have to ask myself, is Carson Beck better than the 4th best quarterback that will be drafted next year? As of right now, today, with the information we have, I don't see that. So I don't understand how we get to Carson Beck being a 1st or 2nd round pick. Tyler Shuck was somebody that anybody you talked to in league circles last year told you Tyler Shuck was going to be a 2nd-day pick. In fact, Nate Tice told me a week before the draft last year, nope, the Saints prefer Tyler Shuck. They absolutely love him. They like him more than Jackson Dart. None of us were surprised that Tyler Shuck was picked in the 2nd round of the draft last year, even if we questioned the pick. It would be stunning to almost everybody I've talked to if Carson Beck were picked in the 2nd round before other names that we've seen. Like, the question here in quarterbacks is how many are actually going to get picked in the first 3 rounds? And I think that number is going to be surprisingly low. So I'm out on this concept. This has got to be a lie. Let's get another one in here. Rumors circulating. We've talked a lot about him. You know well, LSU quarterback Mansour Delane is flying up draft boards. Are you buying the lie or lying on the rumors that he's going to be a top 10 pick?
1000% buying this. And it's not just because of my bias, Go Tigers.
Go Tigers.
Thank you. There are enough cornerback needy teams in the top 10. I think the Kansas City Chiefs stand out as the premier one, that I think that Mansour Delane fills that need. And he's also skyrocketing up draft boards. And I think his value is skyrocketing because he's the beneficiary. of all of these reports coming out about Jermod McCoy's knee. Now, it was debated between Jermod McCoy and Mansour Delane, Jermod McCoy, the cornerback out of Tennessee, about who was the better cornerback in this year's draft class. We're hearing more and more about, Jermod McCoy's ACL, that it wasn't just as simple as repairing that ACL, that he may have to undergo surgery again, and he may actually miss the entirety of next season, if not a majority of next season. So if I'm a general manager, I buyer beware there with Jermod McCoy. If I'm a cornerback needy team, I would then look to Mansour Delane. So I am buying that Mansour Delane could be a top 10 pick because he is the number one option at that position, and there's enough cornerback needy teams.
Yeah, I'm with you 100%. I'm buying it also because it's becoming more and more important to identify a corner in the draft. We talked a lot about why you can't draft running backs because you don't want to pay somebody that much against the scale. Cornerbacks across the NFL are making a ton of money now. You've got corners this year that are going to make $30 million in the next couple of years. By the time Mansour hits his third, fourth year, that number is going to be $40 million a year. You need cost control corners. So they're hard to find, and the drop off, to your point, after the first corner in this year's draft is significant. So to me, it's a no-brainer that he ends up being a top 10 pick because it's a cost control position, because he has the talent and has shown the playmaking ability, and the wins above replacement to the rest of this year's corner class is, I think, pretty substantial. So yeah, I love him to be a top 10 pick. I also, can I get a Coach O? Can I get a Go Tigers?
Go Tigers.
I can't. There we
There
go.
you go.
I just wanted to go. I feel jealous. I'm just jealous. You always get him. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, you can get him as much as you want to, too. It really is just a feel-good thing. Anytime we hear that man's voice, it's just like, ooh, it's rainbows and sunshine. I will say, though, about LSU corners, I kind of feel the same way I do about Ohio State wide receivers, that it's just a safe bet. Mansour Delane was coached by Corey Raymond, the cornerbacks coach at LSU, who also coached Tyrann Mathieu, who also coached Derek Stingley Jr., who also coached Tre'Davious White. He's got a long track record of producing elite NFL corners. While that's not everything, I do think that's something.
All the more reason, top 10 pick. We called it on this show. All right, we'll get back to the NFL draft, but coming up next, we got to get back to the Lakers. They are absolutely doing the damn thing, and that man is on a heater. We'll figure what all that means from Jovan Buha coming up next.
Kalen Deboer in a very interesting situation. He's got a quarterback competition between Austin Mack, who's a guy he brought from Washington, who's been on Alabama's roster for 2 years, and Keelan Russell. Very interesting spring game, as it looked like Russell was further along than Austin Mack.
Do you go get the message board analysis? That's my favorite, where it's like, on that completion, I'm going to tell you what, the spiral looked a little bit tighter. The scrutiny applied to these like skeleton drills. Oh, God bless April.
We're going to give you a name. You tell us whether it's a real college athlete or if our producers just made it up out of thin air. Okay, so collegian or concoction. The first one we'll give you is Fat Brooks. Now, for clarity, fat is P-H-A-T.
That is a concoction.
That's a collegian. He's a guard for Central Michigan.
Fat Brooks.
Fat Brooks, yes.
Cook sends it away. Josiah King takes it deep in his own end zone. King across the 10. King across midfield, beats Cook, and King gonna dance into the end zone. Touchdown.
Playing Russian roulette there. I mean, how many times are you gonna just kick right to him? Look at that. Who wants to run in front of that? That's 5'11", 220 pounds, and all thighs. I mean, no one's gonna try to go low on him.
I mean, in some of these clips, your ability to fight over screens, is this something that you had to learn over time, or is this something that you've always had?
I think that I naturally always was able to switch. I think that I've always naturally been quick on my feet. I just think more so like maybe like low tendencies or more so like low details, which I'm still working on. But I think that like, those little things that like makes the difference between a good defender and a great defender.
24-0. That would be LeBron James' playoff series record when he's up 2-0, which is exactly where the Lakers find themselves now against the Rockets. Joining us now, Jovan Buha, host of the Buha's Block podcast. Jovan, LeBron and the Lakers went into this series as a big underdog. I'm still shook by that. Like I honestly thought the Lakers would slaughter them in this series. I think I've been right so far. What does Vegas know that I don't know that they're not giving the Lakers credit in this series?
I'm not sure. It might be what Vegas doesn't know, clearly, based on how the first couple of games went. And I will be the first to admit that I was wrong on this series as well. I had Rockets in 6, and while that's technically possible still, I don't see the Rockets winning the next 4 games in this series. So I thought it would be a 1-1 split going back to Houston. It's a 2-0 split. They won the game with Kevin Durant coming back, held him to just 3 points and 5 turnovers in that second half. An incredible win for the Lakers. Right now, they have the 4th best defense in the playoffs after being finished the season 20th in defense, ranked even lower for long stretches of the season. But what they've done to Houston's offense so far, I think, has been the story for me, in addition to, of course, Mr. LeBron James.
I mean, that's almost a given, right? The number one story in this series has to be the fact that LeBron James is defying all of the odds of space and time. So LeBron looked like Superman. KD looked terrible. He was a turnover machine. He was clearly not 100%. So is it possible, looking at 37-year-old KD looking rough and 41-year-old LeBron James looking 21, that LeBron James can outlast Kevin Durant in the NBA?
I don't think he can. Well, I don't want to say he can't, because I don't know if he will, just because I think LeBron maybe plays 1 more year, 2 max. But I've also had that answer for the last couple of seasons. So who knows with him? I mean, he's said he feels he could play till 45 or even beyond. And as long as he's playing at a certain level, which he continues to play at, then who knows how long he chooses to play. But it does feel like it's going to go only 1 more year or 2 years max. And he hasn't ruled out retirement technically, but I think he'll play at least 1 more season. With KD, I think he could play several more seasons just by virtue of being 37. But it's remarkable because KD is going to make second team All-NBA. I know for a lot of voters that have publicly shared their votes, he was a second team All-NBA guy. So by that measure, like, LeBron has been performing as well, if not outperforming a second team All-NBA guy in this series. It's obviously been 1 game for KD, 2 for LeBron. But yeah, I mean, LeBron's been the best player in the series. He's looked like a top 10 player. And we saw him shift throughout the season between being a number 2, being a number 3. And but by the end of the season, he was the last man standing, the number 1 option. And he's led the Lakers to a 2-0 lead. And when LeBron gets a 2-0 lead, series tend to be over.
You mentioned that, LeBron can keep playing for a year or 2. God only knows. Do you think LeBron plays that, whatever that is, out with the Lakers?
I think so. And I think there has been a shift throughout the course of the season where earlier there was buzz about LeBron potentially going elsewhere. Cleveland, what was the often mentioned destination, but Golden State, New York, that there's been various teams linked to him or rumors out there. But with the way that the Lakers clicked at the end of February and that stretch that they went on where they went 16-2, 15-2 in March, they had a slew of statement wins. Like, one of the few things that they had not done up to that point in the season was beat really good teams. If you looked at their record against teams above 600, which are teams with a top 10 record in the league, they were 4-12 going into March. In March, they go 6-2 against those teams and beat just about everybody. And one of the big things was LeBron adjusting to that number 3 role that JJ Redick had talked about publicly, and he was thriving in it. And he was just this Swiss Army knife for the Lakers that he could do anything they needed him to do. And he could shapeshift game to game, even half to half, quarter to quarter, just do whatever they needed on both sides of the ball. And then all of a sudden you get the Luka and Austin injuries, and now he has to step up and be the number 1 role, which he's been used to for his entire career. And we're seeing he's still got it. Like, I think that was maybe the only open-ended question still was, like, could he still be the number 1 and lead a team in a playoff setting? And he's clearly shown he could do that, and he's dominated both those games. So I think things are in a good place. We'll see what that number ultimately ends up being at. I think if you look at the potential suitors, most of them could only offer somewhere between a minimum contract and a non-taxpayer MLE contract, which is about 15-16 million. So I think the Lakers will settle in somewhere above that. But is it 20 million, 25? Does it go even above that? If it does, it starts to cut into their cap space, their ability to add players to the roster this summer. But whatever it is, I think they are going to find some number above that non-taxpayer entire MLE. And I think as of right now, LeBron will be back.
You bring up JJ Redick. I do think coaching was a really big storyline coming out of this last game, that JJ Redick's defensive coaching has put Ime Udoka's offensive coaching absolutely into a blender. Now, defense hasn't necessarily been the Lakers' calling card this season. So when you look at what the Lakers have been able to do defensively versus how much the Rockets have struggled offensively, is it more about the Lakers figuring out something defensively and JJ Redick kind of peeling back that next layer on the Lakers defense? Or is it more about Ime Udoka's offensive coaching in Houston?
I think it's a combination of both, but I want to lead with the positivity of the Lakers defense, because this has now been, they have 4 straight wins against the Rockets. So the Lakers play the Rockets on Christmas and the Rockets blow them out. It's embarrassing. The game's over basically by halftime. And it's all of the concerns with the Lakers of they don't have enough defense. They don't have enough athleticism. They can't hang with some of these younger contenders in the West. So all that is on display. Christmas Day marquee matchup. Then Lakers follow that up by playing Houston several months later in Houston, and they have a baseball style series of 2 games in Houston over a span of 3 days. And they win both of those games, largely doing the same things defensively that they've done through the first couple of games in terms of throwing these random doubles at Kevin Durant, trapping him, blitzing him, making him have to make quick decisions and process the floor. And we saw one of those games, he had 7 turnovers. The other one, he had a few. And then now game 2, he has a playoff career high tying 9 turnovers. So I want to give credit to JJ Redick and the Lakers coaching staff for the game plan against Kevin Durant and the Rockets. And the fact that Houston has not been able to figure it out. And it's like, if you keep throwing the same pitch and they can't hit it, you keep throwing the same pitch until you strike them out. So that's what the Lakers have been doing against the Rockets. And so I want to leave with the positivity. The flip side of this is Houston has now had 4 looks at this, or 3 with KD, but they ran a similar style against Şengün in game 1 as well. And it's like Houston has not been able to solve this. So KD talked about after those couple games in Houston in March that this is the best the Lakers defense is going to look like. We're going to have time. We have it on film now. We could scout this. Well, they had a month to prepare for this, and it looked actually worse than it did in the regular season in those 2 games in Houston. So I think the Lakers have now won 4 straight against them. They've held them under 100 in 3 of those 4. I think the Rockets have a serious problem offensively.
Given the health issues that the Lakers have had and what's coming for them next, should they advance past the Rockets, is a win in this series enough to make this entire season a success for the Lakers?
I think so. So I'm of 2 minds of this, right? Because for the Lakers franchise, it's always championship or bust. They are one of the few franchises in sports where it's like they don't hang division banners, they don't hang conference banners. It's not about how far you go in the playoffs. It's about, did you win a championship or not? And that's the standard. And any season in which they don't win a championship, for the franchise at least, it is a failure. However, undeniably, this was a group that a lot of people had in the, let's say, 6 to 8 range in the West. So like a fringe play-in team or play-in team. And the fact that they ended up finishing as the 4 seed, largely due to injury. I think if Luka and Austin don't go out, they finished 3-2. I think they beat Dallas. They go 4-1. They lock up the 3 seed, and then they're playing Minnesota in round 1. So they were right there as the 3 seed right before those 2 guys won out. And the fact that they back-to-back 51 seasons, potentially advancing past the first round and going further than they did last year, I think based on all of the injuries they've had, particularly late in the season, that would be a success objectively. Now, for their internal feelings, I'm not going to speak for that, but JJ just talked about, we want to extend the season. We want to give Austin Reaves and Luka Doncic a chance to return. And right now they're in a pretty good position of, even if Houston goes on a run here within the series, it's going at least 6. I would be shocked if the Lakers don't get at least 1 more. So I think it's going could be pushed out to 7, let's say. And if it pushes out to 7, you're buying more time for Luka and or Austin to return at some point. So whether it's a long first round series or LA advances quickly and then it's the second round, they are buying some time here for those guys to at least have an opportunity to have a competitive second round series.
Let's stick with those two then for a moment. What's the latest that you're hearing in Lakerland on the health and availability of Luka and Austin Reaves?
So the Lakers have been operating as if they're not going to have either one of these guys in this round. And I think that's important to lay that groundwork for a lot of the conversation, because there's been different things that have been out there in terms of Luka. Like, Luka technically did not have a timetable when he went out to the Lakers, or at least a public one from the Lakers. With Austin Reaves, they were very direct. 4 to 6 weeks, which 4 weeks would put him around game 5 on the short side. 6 weeks would put him into mid to late second round, depending on when the second round starts. So Austin, we had a clear idea of. With Luka, typically grade 2 hamstrings can be anywhere from 3 to 6 weeks, but 3 weeks is obviously very short. And with hamstrings, you got to be careful. We just saw with Jalen Williams, you don't want it to be a recurring situation. Technically, it was the other hamstring with him, but he's had several hamstring injuries, and like they can reoccur. So in terms of Austin, he has returned to the court. He has started his return to play protocol, but the Lakers are saying there's no timeline change for him. So if we take that timeline, around game 5 or game 6 would be the earliest he could return. So it seems like he's at least on progress with the initial timeline, and maybe a little bit on the shorter side, but he's, per the Lakers, nothing has changed in terms of like staying on that timeline. So again, it seems like game 5 is like the very soon, like the earliest he can return, but maybe, I mean, there might not even be a game 5 in the series, but we'll see how things play out. And then with Luka, he has not returned to on-court play yet. So I think his process will be a little bit past that, but JJ said he is going to be returning very soon to on-court work. Then he starts his process. So with Luka, it seems more trending toward the early second round on the soon side, and then with Austin, it could be at some point in the late first round.
So if they do advance to round 2, and they're likely to face the Thunder, if they get healthy in time to face the Thunder, do you give that Lakers team a chance against OKC?
It's tough. It's tough to see because you look at the regular season, they lost to OKC by 30 plus 3 different times. Now, one of those games was late in the season. They punted no Luka and Austin because of injury, and then LeBron didn't play in it. But the 2 games in OKC, I think, were demoralizing. They were down by 30 points early in the second quarter in both of those games. From the first few minutes of the game, it was clear these 2 teams were in different weight classes. So I would make the Thunder a heavy favorite in a potential second round series. I think it should be the favorite over everybody, frankly. Now, the interesting thing with what just happened last night was the Jalen Williams injury. And I thought he was playing great basketball. He was looking like himself. And last year, I think a lot of people had him as like a consensus top 20, if not top 15 player. So to lose that type of player who was instrumental in their championship run, I think that makes it I guess closer to an even match, but I still would probably go OKC in 5. Like Luka and Austin of injury, right? And probably on some sort of minutes restriction. And then you get thrown into that defense. And when both of them were healthy, they both did not perform well against that defense. Austin Reaves had several turnovers in the first few minutes of that game in OKC. Then Luka did not have a good game and didn't really find his footing. That eventually left injured. So yeah, I think if the Lakers play the Thunder, look, I think the Thunder and the Rockets are 2 different teams entirely, right? So the Lakers were the underdogs against Houston, but I think OKC is a much better team than Houston on both sides of the basketball and would present far greater troubles for the Lakers. So we'll see. They could be the Cinderella team of the 2026 playoffs, but I think they'd be heavy underdogs against OKC with or without J-Dub.
Yeah, they're going to make a documentary someday about the amount of injuries OKC has had this year and still how good they are. Appreciate your insight, Jovan Buha. Check out the Buha's Block podcast. Still my favorite podcast name in the world. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Follow him on Twitter, Jovan. Thanks so much for the time, man.
Appreciate you guys for having me.
Great stuff on the Lakers there. See what they can do next. Some surprising news in college football. That man locked up long term, but was it a good idea? We'll answer that next.
If somebody stops you on the street and they say, Dion, what's Joe Brady like? What do you tell them?
Just a dope, cool dude from Florida that loves ball, and he'll shoot you straight He'll tell you what you need to, but he'll also laugh and tell a joke. And as a player, coach relationship, it's beautiful to have somebody that you know can turn it on and turn it off at any time.
What is going to happen inevitably in 6 months when you are tempted, when you have that itch, when the thoughts in the back of your mind say, you still got it. No one leaves on a winning streak.
That's what's going to happen.
Yes,
I know.
It's inevitable.
I've been around this sport long enough to know that that's what's going to happen. Is I would like to retire on a 4-fight win streak, then roll the dice, come back, get a loss, and then guess what happens? Then I'm going to get in this chase of wanting to get that loss back. And we see how that ends up for a lot of fighters.
What put you over the top to like, I want to go to Indiana?
I was really close to going to a couple other schools. However, the point that really cemented me into Indiana is Coach Ignetti really focusing on development. His big selling point was, hey, I don't know, like other schools are trying to sell you on if we're going to win a national championship, if we're going to win all these games. I just know one thing I can do is develop quarterbacks.
We have the fake handoff. Nate Davis rumbling, stumbling, bumbling, and then easy walking with a little bit of swaggy style in for a touchdown.
Yeah, the swaggy walk is as fast as his run. So that's what's...
Looked like maybe we were going to get a fake pick. Instead, wow, he is absolutely rolling, and now we have dueling quarterback runs all over the place. Interesting and somewhat surprising news out of college football. Alabama head coach Kalen Deboer has received a new 7-year deal with a $12.5 million annual salary. Deboer 20-8 in 2 seasons at Bama with 1 college football playoff appearance. Caroline, this is a surprising move, I think, because of the timing. Like, we didn't hear of anybody right now negotiating against Alabama for Kalen Deboer. There wasn't another job on the table that it felt like he was about to take. I always love it when guys get paid, but the timing of this announcement just felt weird to me.
It's very weird. And just to clarify, it's being put out there as a 7-year extension. It's really essentially a 2-year extension with a raise. Kalen Deboer was previously making about $10.25 million, so now he gets that $2.25 million pay bump every year and extended for 2 more years. My question is, why? Why? Like, I believe in life, in business, in football, you don't do anything unless you have to. Why did Alabama have to extend Kalen Deboer? I mean, sure, they got to the college football playoff last year, but is that the expectation in Alabama? And you're giving him an extension for making the college football playoff, 4 years after he did it? 4 months after he did it? I don't understand why this is a thing in college sports. We see premature extensions all the time. And I see it burning football programs and universities far more than it helps them. I'll use Mike Norvell as the example. When Nick Saban retired, we saw so many coaches get extensions. Dan Lanning got an extension. Steve Sarkisian got an extension. Mike Norvell got an extension coming off of that undefeated season. They got snubbed out of the CFP. We all know the story. The reason why Florida State can't fire Mike Norvell after going 7-17 over the last 2 years is because they can't afford it. It's because they extended him. They got nervous that he was going to leave for the Alabama job, so they hurried up and gave him an extension and gave him a raise. Now here we are 2 years later. Florida State is the joke of college football. They have fallen short of expectations based off of anyone in college football expectations. They won 2 games 2 years ago. And now they can't afford to get rid of him because they prematurely locked him up. So I just think that this puts Alabama in a sticky situation in extending Kalen Deboer when they didn't really have to. He was already, Fitz, under contract through 2031. So why extend him through 2033 and why give him a pay bump if it wasn't already illicitly listed in his contract that he is always a top 5 paid coach in college football, which based off of everything that I know and the research that I've done on Kalen Deboer, he didn't have that clause in his contract.
Right. This is also curious because the timing, the money, the buyout, and what is at least perceived as a lack of love at times between the fan base and the coach. I think we have to acknowledge that in this conversation. Look, I love it when coaches get paid. And I was very clear from the outset about not loving this for Kalen Deboer coming to Alabama in general, because there's a certain quality of life that I think you lose sometimes when you're part of a fan base that has an unreasonably high expectation every single year. Like, it's almost impossible to fill the shoes of Nick Saban. And look, I understand certain organizations believe that they deserve championships, but it wasn't that many months ago that there were people in Alabama calling radio talk shows to say, if I win the lottery, I'm going to pay Kalen Deboer's buyout. That's how unhappy Alabama fans have been at times with the result. And now what do you have? You have, according to reports, a buyout that will be 90% of the remaining compensation. So let's say the wheels fall off this year in Alabama and they suck. $67.5 million would be the projected buyout. In 2028, $56.25 million for a coach that hasn't yet done what Alabama fans expect he should naturally do. Like, part of what we're talking about is the new era of college football where, frankly, if you had to bet your house on Indiana next year or Alabama next year, which are you more comfortable betting it on? Right now, the answer is Indiana. Like, I think Kalen Deboer is an excellent head football coach. And in a vacuum, I think Kalen Deboer in Alabama is a great marriage because it's a great program with a great head coach, great history, great fans, great ability to get talent. The fact is, though, it's a fan base that believes that any year they don't win a national championship is an epic failure, which means you just gave an extension to a coach that in 2 years has, at least in the eyes of the fans, epically failed. That means there's only going to be more noise every time Alabama doesn't win a championship. Now it's going to be, we're paying him for what exactly? And that only makes quality of life for Kalen Deboer weirder, tougher, quality of life for his family when his kids go to school and everybody starts chirping at the coach's kid. Like, it makes that tougher. It makes the justification from the school to the fans tougher. It makes the reality tougher for fans to accept. Like, it's just not easy to be an Alabama football coach. And I know, boo-hoo, he's making millions of dollars. Who cares? But I think we do care when we start to get into what it looks like long-term if Alabama doesn't win the Natty. I don't think right now today Alabama wins the national championship this year, which means we're going to be talking about whether or not he can get out of this contract, whether or not Alabama can get him out of this contract in months. That, to me, makes the timing of it all very difficult.
It was not that long ago that we heard Alabama fans calling into local Tuscaloosa, Birmingham, Mobile radio, just ripping on Kalen Deboer's hoodie because they were grasping at any straws that they possibly could for reasons to hate that man if losing to Vanderbilt in year one wasn't enough. It wasn't that long ago that we were talking about Kalen Deboer potentially leaving Alabama to take the Penn State job, because it was not that long ago that there were rumors swirling that the pressure cooker in Tuscaloosa was just too much for Kalen Deboer. He's a West Coast chill guy. Chill doesn't necessarily fit the dynamic and the culture in Tuscaloosa. All that being said, I have a ton of respect for Kalen Deboer. I love Kalen Deboer.
Facts.
He has won everywhere he has been. And if you expect Kalen Deboer to have Nick Saban caliber results in a different era of college football, you're setting yourself up to be disappointed. But that doesn't mean that the expectations are going anywhere. So this is all just very puzzling to me. You bring up the 90% buyout. If Alabama does decide to fire Kalen Deboer without cause, they owe him 90% of his remaining contract. That was the same in his previous contract, but now that 90% is just different because it's more. They would owe him more. So while the percentage isn't different, the amount is more. The interesting thing here, too, that I found in his new contract is that not only will Alabama owe Kalen Deboer more if they fire him without cause, Kalen Deboer will owe more back to the University of Alabama if he decides to leave. It's not exponentially more, it's not significantly more, but it is more. So I don't know if that part of the contract is a little bit of, hey, if we're going to scratch your back, you're going to have to scratch ours. We're going to have to get ours as well if you decide to leave here. But I think that what Kalen Deboer would now owe Alabama if he decides to leave in this new contract doesn't make up for what Alabama now owes him under this new contract, how much longer they have on the hook for him based off of the results that he's given. Kalen Deboer is not a bad coach, and Alabama has not been a bad program or team under Kalen Deboer. But let's not act like the results that Kalen Deboer has gotten over the last couple of years warrants both a raise and an extension.
It's one of the weird programs in the country where if you're constantly a top 10 team, that's only going to be seen more and more as frustration and failure from the fan base. And Kalen Deboer knows that. Look, I love Coach getting paid. I love generational wealth getting to guys that work hard. Great. Congratulations. It just feels like this right now is making something inevitably messier down the road, and that's going to be interesting to dive into. Remember, you can dive into every single pick of the NFL draft with Yahoo Sports tonight and tomorrow. She's Caroline Fenton. I'm Jason Fitz. Come back tomorrow. We'll be right here for Yahoo Sports Daily to break all the action down. Come see us again tomorrow. Have a great day.